गुरु महाराज की जय। ॐ ह्रीं वृतं तोमचलो गुणजे गुणेन्द्यः नक्तं दिवं सकरुणं तव पाद पद्मं मोहङ्कषं बहुकृतं न भजे यतोऽहं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीन बन्धो। भक्तिर्भगश्च भजनं भवभेदकारी गच्छन्त्यलं सुविपुलं गमनाय तत्त्वं वक्त्रोद्धृतोऽपि हृदये न मे भाति किञ्चित् तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीन बन्धो। तेजस्तरन्ते तरसा त्वयि तृष्णा रागे कृते ऋतपथे त्वयि राम कृष्णे मर्त्यामृतं तव पदं मरणोर्मि नाशं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीन बन्धो। कृत्यं करोति कलुषं कुहकान्तकारी स्नान्तं शिवं सुविमलं तव नाम नाथ। यस्मादहं त्वशरणो जगदेकगम्या तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीन बन्धो। ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्म स्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ॐ नमः श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमः श्री नमो नमः। ॐ नमः श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। सर्वमङ्गल माङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। सृष्टि स्थिति विनाशानां शक्ति भूते सनातनी गुणाशये गुणमये नारायणी नमोस्तुते। शरणागत दीनार्त परित्राण परायणे सर्वस्यार्थे हरे देवी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय 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 महामाये की जय। जय भगवान श्री रामकृष्ण देव की जय। जय स्वामी जी महाराज जी की जय। कृतिं परमाम् अभयां वरदां नररूपधरा जनतापहरा शरणागतसेवकतोषकरीं प्रणमामि परा जननीं जगतां गुणहीन सुता न पराधयुता कृपयाद्य समुद्धरमोहगतां तरणीं भवसागरपारकरीं प्रणमामि परा जननीं जगतां विषयं कुसुमं परिहृत्य सदा चरणाम्बुरुहा मृतशान्तिसुधा पिबभृङ्गमनो भवरोगहरा प्रणमामि परा जननीं जगतां कृपां कुरु महादेवी सुतेषु प्रणतेषु च चरणाशयदानेन कृपामयि मुस्तु ते लज्जापटावृते नित्यं शारदे ज्ञानदायिके पापेभ्यो नः सदा रक्ष कृपामयि नमोऽस्तु ते रामकृष्णगतप्राणां तन्नाम श्रवणप्रियां तद्भावरञ्जिताकारां प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः पवित्रं चरितं यस्या पवित्रं जीवनं तथा पवित्रता स्वरूपिण्यै तस्यै कुर्मो नमो नमः देवीं प्रसन्ना प्रणतात्रिहन्त्रीं योगेन्द्रपूजा योगधर्मपात्रीं तां शारदां भक्तिविज्ञानदात्रीं दयास्वरूपां प्रणमामि नित्यं स्नेहेन बध्नासि मनोस्मदीयं दोषानशेषान् सगुणीकरोषि आहेतुनानो दयसे सदोषा स्वाङ्के गृहीत्वा यदिदं विचित्रं प्रसीद मातर् विनयेन याचे नित्यं भव स्नेहवते सुतेषु प्रेमैकविन्दुं चिरदग्धचित्ते विषिञ्च चित्तं कुरु न सुशान्तं जननीं शारदा देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयोषित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः।
Namashri Atirajaya Vivekananda Sure Sachit Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharane. So we had finished the part of this lecture by Vivekananda on realization, where he freely gives a rendition of the Kathopanishad. And the rest of it, the rest of this lecture, which is we are drawing towards the close of this lecture, the rest of it is really a commentary on what exactly is the thrust of the Upanishad per se. So let me read out a couple of paragraphs for today, because what he is going to dwell on is actually, firstly, there is a certain worldview that the Upanishad gives. And there is a certain, this is not just something that is a theoretical thing, there is something to be done. It is an experimental science, so to speak. It is something to be done on a day-to-day basis, without which theorizing about it becomes pointless. This theorizing is exactly what was described in this verse, Nayamatma pravachanena labhya. Na medhaya na bahuna shrutena yame vaishe vrinute tena labhya tasya esha atma vivrunute tanum syam. Let's just repeat that, go through that, because that's really in some sense these next two paragraphs in this in this lecture on realization. These two lines, this particular verse, is really the thrust of this. It's the gist of these two paragraphs. So let's repeat that. Na ayam atma pravachanena labhya. Pravachana means various discussions or lectures. So this self, the concrete, this understanding or comprehension of what is the essential part of one's being, what is referred to as the Atma, is not to be obtained through these various lectures. One. What then? Does one need a sharp, penetrating intellect? Yes, that's an aid, but that's not enough. Na medhaya. And then one see basically the tendency of the human mind very often is to take recourse to various external props. And what this verse is doing is essentially saying that yes, props are good as far as they go, but they are not good enough. So na medhaya, na bahuna shrutena. Bahuna shrutena means people spend time going through various scriptural passages. So it's not, what is being said here is that it's not to be obtained through constant reading of multifarious scriptural texts. What then? What really is the way? Yam eva esha vrinute. Which means there are two things. There are two ways this is interpreted, one by Shankara, one by Ramanuja. And in a certain sense, that which is more relevant, more practically oriented towards us, this is going to be a surprising comment, is really Shankara's interpretation. Yam eva esha vrinute. This particular phrase can be interpreted as he who chooses this pursuit of the Atman as a worthwhile thing above everything else. He or she who chooses. It's precisely this making of the choice, this determining of the choice that this is what I want above everything else. This is what this verb vrinute in Sanskrit means. Yam eva, whoever. Yam eva esha, this self. Yam eva esha vrinute. Tasya esha atma vivrunute tanumsyam. To such a person, to such an individual who has made this choice above everything else, the secret of the self is revealed. I'll just quickly give the more devotional interpretation of this, but in a certain sense, somehow or the other, it's not quite relevant, or it doesn't really help us. So the devotional interpretation is that whoever is chosen by that Atman is the person to whom it reveals itself. Somehow or the other, why is this not particularly relevant, or why is this not a particularly sensible interpretation? It's basically because, okay, fine, so in somehow or the other it treats this transcendental reality as something, this is a connotation, as it can arbitrarily choose someone and not choose somebody else, much like a dictator. So, in that case, there is nothing for us to do. And this kind of an interpretation, in that case, it's okay. One gives all these kinds of lazy interpretation. Oh, I have not been chosen, so therefore I cannot do anything. So what am I to do about it? Just wait arbitrarily. We'll never know whether we are chosen or not, because there's all kind of speculative philosophy in that case. On the other hand, if we interpret it as this is revealed to to a person who chooses it to be his or her goal above everything else, then we have something to do about it. Question, see, at the end of the day, any piece of clear knowledge is not something that is born out of a causal chain. If one interprets the second interpretation that way, then it's okay. But it does not, but it remains mute on what are we to do about it. So what are we to do about it? Ask ourselves, we claim that we want this kind of a higher life, but can we ask ourselves and give an honest answer to, is this really what we want above everything else? For that, we really have to investigate this key verb, want. In other words, what am I really wanting? What is my want? This is not something to be talked about externally. It's something that is to be understood through an inward directed enquiry. This inward directed enquiry gives us answers. Clear, simple answers. This is really what I want. There are these other things, but I don't really want them so much. The more honest that answer is, it's an honesty to oneself. You need not talk about it. You need not advertise it. By and large, those things are completely irrelevant. But that answer that we get within ourselves, what is it that I want above everything else? And what am I doing about it? This question, or these two questions, and the answer that it brings in its train, particularly the second, what am I doing about it, would actually prompt us to act. Act does not mean running round and round some building like a headless chicken. Yeah? It means act with a focus, a directed life, leading of one's life at every stage. The more one is aware of what one wants out of anything, the more goal-directed one's life becomes. That goal-directed life is what one is aspiring for here. Okay, with that, so essentially that's really what one is wanting. I mean, this is, we've talked about this many times, doing anything with full attention, or being mindful, or being practicing in devotional language, practice of the presence of God, etc., etc. What it means in very down-to-earth, not particularly religious terms, is exactly this: being aware of where one is headed in one's subjective life at every moment. Yeah? This is not something for which one needs any kind of religious trapping, spiritual cloaks, nothing. It is what leads one forward in any kind of pursuit. And the clearer the intention and the greater the focus, the smoother and faster the progress. Why? Why is it smoother? Does that mean that obstacles will not come? They will come. But if the intent is strong, then these obstacles don't appear to one to be insurmountable, don't appear to be that difficult. Why? Because that which one is aspiring for fills the mental horizon. And that's what overshadows these minor obstacles. Say, for example, when we were sitting down today, suppose this tablecloth is missing. If my attention was on the tablecloth, oh, today there is no tablecloth, and I keep on thinking about that, then the job at hand is lost, right? So whether it's there or whether it's not there is not relevant, is not important. I'm giving you a trivial example, but this is the kind of thing that happens. So for example, you want to do something, and there are some trappings which are missing. If the focus on the goal is adequate, then those obstacles become relatively less significant, at best even insignificant. That's really what one is, what these practices of being mindful or being aware of the moment entail. Okay, let's get back to Vivekananda's, the way he has described it. The one central idea throughout all the Upanishads is that of realization. And again, this word realization, I mean, there couldn't be a better word, but unfortunately, we have some kind of strange, mystical, mysterious understanding of the word. It is exactly what that word connotes. Realize, which means make real. In other words, what we are wanting as the goal of life, is it real to us today at this moment? Real in the sense that this room, this talking, this having to go for dinner after a couple of hours, all these things are real to us. Is our goal that real? Once it is, then we can say, yes, it has been real-ized. We put those two together and call it realize. But that's all it is. Make real. In other words, our minds have this faculty of treating something as valuable or real or true. Is our goal true, real, valuable to us? Once it is real. That's it. This is in the most Sanskrit word, it's essentially you call the same thing Sat. Real is what Sat is about. Yeah? So we call these final final goals as Sat, Chit, Ananda, and truth, existence, bliss. But the Sat aspect is that which is real, just real. And this reification, making real, is what realize is. Okay, so the one central idea throughout all the Upanishads is that of realization. A great many questions will arise from time to time, and especially to the modern man. There will be the question of utility. There will be various other questions, but in all, we shall find that we are prompted by our past associations. It is association of ideas that has such a tremendous power over our minds. Herein is stated very simply and in one sentence the obstacle to treating the goal as real. Why is that the case? Because the mind is habituated. We have these habits of the mind where we treat something which is from a more detached perspective completely valueless as valuable. Yeah. There is this poem, a deep poem by Tagore. I'll state it in Bengali first and then translate it into English. It starts with Amari Chetonar Range Panna Holo Shobut Chuni Utlo Ranga. Means basically it is the light of my consciousness that makes the emerald green, that makes the ruby red. Here the particular colors are not important. One treats emeralds and rubies as valuable. What he is saying there is that it is this light of one's subjective consciousness that makes the emerald valuable, that makes the ruby valuable. It is this imparting of value to something which intrinsically is of no value. I think we've made this quick comment before. I mean, suppose one is going around in a forest in some dense jungle and a tiger comes along. For the tiger, what is valuable is the individual who is traveling in the forest, and it's valuable to the tiger as food. If one offers emeralds and rubies and a lot of money to the tiger is not going to spare you. Yeah? So it's basically what is valuable is a very subjective thing. And here what is being said is really that our mental habits, we are accustomed to treating various things as valuable. I think I've mentioned this book here before, but maybe many terms back. There is this book by a relatively recent Israeli author called Yuval Noah Harari. Yeah? And the book is called Sapiens. It's essentially saying what exactly distinguishes human beings from others in terms of the kind of large and complex society that we have built for ourselves. And he says, one of the key things that he puts forward, this is one of the theses that he puts forward in that book, is the fact that as members of this species, we have an ability to have shared narratives, shared stories. This sounds almost, too simplistic. But on the other hand, if you think about it, there are certain things which are really quite deep in this simple statement. Say, for example, this business of, say, money per se. Yeah? So this is now our currency. Money is supposed to be a currency for getting various things. But what is it on? It's printed on paper. Are the constituents of that particularly valuable? No. Who has decided then to give value to that piece of paper? You basically go, so you take that money along, either it's invested in some bunch of numbers, in some bank, or in some fixed deposit, etc., etc. Where is it really? Why is that particularly valuable? And the point really is that as a species, even when one particular nation is fighting another particular nation, they are agreeing on the value that is given to this resource that we call money. Which means that it is a narrative. We have adopted it as a species out of convenience. Cockroaches or rats or tigers or monkeys or apes will not assign any value to what a person's bank account is, or whether the person is the president of the United States or the Prime Minister of India or the Premier in China. It does not care. To a tiger, an individual, however, whether that person is poor or rich, there's only one currency that the tiger understands. This person is food. The bank account or the currency, the GDP of the country, etc., completely irrelevant. So then why is it valuable? Because people of different nations have agreed to this narrative, to this story. This shared narrative has given it value. And that narrative continues even when one group of that species gets up to destroy another. This shared narrative is what imparts value. And here, what is being said here is essentially that this shared narrative becomes a story in our heads, and we are habituated to thinking in certain lines. This habit of our minds, we give various explanations. This particular story about money, etc., is a societal. It's a narrative that is special to human society. Non-human societies typically do not share it. Very likely, there is a group of individuals in one of the islands in Andaman and Nicobar. These are very primitive indigenous people. Very likely, they would not share in this narrative either. You go and offer them a lot of gold, etc., etc., they are going to spurn it, which means they do not share in this narrative. So there is nothing sacrosanct. There is nothing real or true. It's a narrative. And what one is being asked here is that, what Vivekananda is saying here, is that these habits that we have arise from the fact that we have decided to impart value to certain things. This value has not come from outside. We have decided to impart value to it. And then we ask, and here is really the core enquiry, what is it in our psyche that imparts value? Some people impart value to wealth. Some people impart value to finer things like music, etc., etc. Some people to learning. But at the basis of all of this is this imparting of value, which is a shared human practice. And we do not bother to ask, okay, I have added value, I have decided to say that this such and such a thing is sat, or equivalently, in simpler English, it's valuable. Is it really? Or have I decided to say that such and such a thing is valuable? And once one changes the perspective, changes the connotation of the question from saying, this particular laptop is valuable, to the statement, I have imparted value to this laptop because it does such and such things for me. It functions, it does such and such things for me, and then start probing those such and such things. Finally, one comes to this conclusion that the source of value, the source of reification, that which says that this laptop is sat, is really within oneself. It is a subjective thing which imparts value to this thing outside. This process of enquiry within is really what, as we have repeated, because this is supposed to be a Jnana Yoga lecture, this really is what this Sa Esha Neti Neti Atma is about. Na iti means not just this external form of this laptop. It is of value because in a certain way, I or my conscious self is related to it. Navare patyuk kamaya pati priyam bhavati. Navare sarvam kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. This is from the Brihadaranyaka. It's for the sake of one's self. This value given to something outside arises from a faculty within ourselves, which rushes out through the senses and the body-mind and imparts value to an external object without pausing. And this instinctive rushing out and imparting of value is what is being called a habit. Yeah? In all, we shall find that we are prompted by our past associations. These habits, there is no, finally at the end of the day, there is no reason for it. And therefore, if one tries to use the faculty of reason to ask, okay, I have this habit, and this is really what is imparting value to this laptop, to this activity today. Is there any fundamental reason? Is there any fundamental why that can be answered by, why do I have this habit? Why do I impart value? And finally, when one realizes and understands, oh, this is just because I was habituated over these years, no other reason, then that value starts decreasing. This enquiry is what is called viveka. Yeah? Introspective enquiry is what is called viveka. And this clarity of understanding, oh, this is not valuable in and of itself, but it is I who decided to impart value to it. Therefore, the choice is really in my hand today to decide not to impart value to it. And this withdrawal is exactly what is called vairagya. So the first process, enquiry, is called viveka. The second process is called vairagya. It is association of ideas that has such a tremendous power over our minds. There is no doubt that this habits, ideas, what in Sanskrit or in the Indian tradition, these are what we call samskaras. There is no final reason for it. Yeah, it's just a force of habit, and so they can be countered by other habits. But if one uses this faculty of introspective reasoning with it, then it cuts through these sheaths that we have imposed on ourselves by declaring XYZ to be valuable. Yeah, it's really exposing these things in our mind to this light of clear, penetrating reason that exposes the emptiness of substance in them. This exposure of emptiness of substance in the external thing is what the Buddhists call shunya. So in practice, as we've said before, in one passage in the Leela Prasanga, great master, Swami Saradananda says that the path followed by the Buddha and this Vedantic path of knowledge are exactly one and the same thing. There's no difference between them. So the shunya is basically this exposing lack of lasting value in that which we impart value to. Yeah. Okay. To those who from childhood have always heard of a personal God and the personality of the mind, see, somehow or the other, every time we think of ourselves, finally, if we slightly refine that, we think that, oh, this mind is really what I am. And therefore, there is a personal God. Yeah. These ideas, to those who are habituated with that, these ideas will, of course, appear very stern and harsh. Why? Because it is taking our support, so to speak, away from us. But if they listen to them and think over them, they will become part of their lives and will no longer frighten them. Yeah? This part, this fearlessness, has been something that Vivekananda keeps emphasizing all through. Yeah? And quotes this other passage from Vairagya, Vairagyam eva abhayam, which means that which is essential to my existence, there is nothing on earth or beyond that can take it away from me. Yeah? In fact, in one place, Shankara says in one of the, I think very likely in one of the Brahma Sutras, Bhashyas, Ishvara api sa atma na nirakartum shakyate tasya atmatvat. That which we call the personal God, even this personal God cannot destroy this Atman, this essence of one's own being. Why? Because it is the essence of his or her being. That means this personal God, the essence of the personal God and the essence of oneself are one and the same thing. This is the meaning of this Aham Brahmasmi. Yes? So this Samashti, this world to which we attribute value to, and our subjective existence to which we intrinsically, instinctively assign value. Okay, we don't want to get destroyed. That's basically saying that I want to assign value to my individuated existence. Once one starts probing In Vedanta, basically, this samashti, all, everything, our chinna chaitanya, when this all becomes an upadhi of consciousness, then that is what is called God. And this individual or vyashti, when becomes a upadhi or limitation of consciousness, calls it the individual. But the conscious principle is the same there and here. And once these limiting adjunct of the world and the individual are removed, that which remains remains. Yeah? This is that which remains is, according to the Buddhist style of thinking or introspection, that is what they call shunya, and this is what the Vedanti calls Brahman. Very little difference in terms of actual practice. And as we've said here, theology or doctrine, that's not particularly important. Getting there by practice is. Okay? The great question that generally arises is the utility of philosophy. To that, there can be only one answer. If on the utilitarian ground, it is good for men to seek for pleasure, why should not those whose pleasure is in religious speculation seek for that? Because sense enjoyments please many, they seek for them. But there may be others whom they do not please, who want higher enjoyment. The dog's pleasure is only in eating and drinking. The dog cannot understand the pleasure of the scientist who gives up everything and perhaps dwells on the top of a mountain to observe the position of certain stars. The dogs may smile at him and think he is a madman. Perhaps this poor scientist never had money enough to marry even, and lives very simply. Maybe the dog laughs at him, but the scientist says, "My dear dog, your pleasure is only in the senses which you enjoy, and you know nothing beyond. But for me, this is the most enjoyable life, and if you have the right to seek your pleasures in your own way, so have I in mine." The mistake is that we want to tie the whole world down to our own plane of thought and to make our mind the measure of the whole universe. To you, the old sense things are perhaps the greatest pleasure, but it is not necessary that my pleasure should be the same. And when you insist upon that, I differ from you. That is the difference between the worldly utilitarian and the religious man. Note that here he is talking about religion in the essential sense, not in terms of any doctrines or dogmas, but that which is common to all of them. The first man says, "See how happy I am. I get money, but do not bother my head about religion. It is too unsearchable and I am happy without it." So far, so good. Good for all utilitarians. But this world is terrible. If a man gets happiness in any way excepting by injuring his fellow beings, Godspeed him. But when this man comes to me and says, "You too must do these things, you will be a fool if you do not," I say, "You are wrong, because the very things which are pleasurable to you have not the slightest attraction for me. If I had to go after a few handfuls of gold, my life would not be worth living. I should die." That is the answer the religious man would make. The fact is that religion is possible only for those who have finished with these lower things. We must have our own experiences, must have our full run. It is only when we have finished this run that the other world opens. So here, we'll conclude here. What he's basically saying is that, look, if there is something that one really regards as valuable, then one has to work it out. Work through that with the discriminatory intellect or the alert mind accompanying the action. Essentially saying, oh, I regarded this as valuable. What is there in this particular action now that is valuable? There are great things like that. So, for example, a doctor tends or addresses the patient, and there is a certain larger purpose that such a person is serving. In all our institutions, this largeness, extra personal aspect is there. If it was not there, if it was a small petty thing, it would not survive as an institution. And so what happens in and through our work, one of the principal things that the Ramakrishna Mission as an organization commits to is service, action. Yeah? Why work? It's basically because work in its most intrinsic nature is large and impersonal. There is always a larger purpose which encompasses the doer, the other members who are performing that action, the person who is being helped, etc. It is in and through doing of the work that this larger dimension of one's own life starts becoming clear at a very tangible, instinctive level. Yeah? It is there. So this is not supposed to be an encouragement to go and sit quietly in one's room and close one's eyes to the world. No. Working in the world and keeping this alert, inquiring mind awake at all times, in and through the work, one starts understanding, grasping this larger dimension of work itself, and hence of the individual doing that work. See, our instinctive thing is, oh, I have to do such and such thing because I have to earn such and such, because I have to feed myself. It's not that that is going to go away, but that gets embedded in something that is a much larger system. And one sees that, oh, this individual purpose with which I went in there is not really the purpose of the system. I am part and parcel of that system, but the system is serving a much larger purpose. This is one step. What is it a step towards? It is a step towards losing one's smaller identity in what? In a larger identity. Yeah? And one plays these roles. Human beings are very often defined by their roles, but the subject is this consciousness on which all these roles are superimposed. And that consciousness which is utilized in playing these roles is not different in you, in me, in the most wealthy or the most powerful, and the beggar. Yeah? So we'll come back to this next week. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.